Hey everybody, and welcome to episode 2 of the Xpansion Pack. Today we have a chat with Maxim Istomin, a leading professional in the tabletop marketplace and a member of Crowd Games. He has a long history of publishing dozens of board games and making them available for audiences in his home country of Russia. I met him at Tallahassee's InfinityCon, where he showed me a newly released board game, Space Explorers. In this episode, we expand on the game, his transition from Russia to Florida, and talk about his future plans in the industry. Now it's time to press start and dive into the Xpansion Pack. Maxim, can you tell me a little bit about your background, like where you're from and what you currently do?
Yeah, I'm originally from Russia, and I've been in the board games business and board games industry for close to 20 years. I lived and worked in Russia for the last probably 19 years. And over there, I was one of the founders of largest Russian publisher, and I think this company is now probably in the top 5 large companies that publishes board games in the world. It's called Hobby World. I was one of the founders, and we started in 2002, this company. And since then, it grew and grew and grew and eventually became very big. And I decided to sell my shares in it and move to the U.S., which I did. And this year, actually this January, I got my green card. So now my plan is to start publishing board games here in America.
Nice.
I think it's a great place to be, and I think I can, make some impact there.
Nice. So my one thing that came to mind is, how did you get started in the board games business?
Oh, well, that was quite a story. I liked the board games ever since I was a kid, and of course, as you can probably imagine, I used to design little games even when I was in high school in the Soviet Union. So it was like a little, throw a die and walk around, kind of like a Monopoly thing. Well, I was, 8 years old when I started on that. And then in about 1995, I've created a game called Berserk. And this was a collectible card game. I saw Magic the Gathering when I was in the United States on a visit. And I thought to myself, well, why can I do it? And so in 96, I created a game and drew some pictures. And I had a really good friend with whom we did all that. And we played. And we, dreamt, basically, that one day this game will be published. And in about 2002, we actually got some money together and published it. That was the start of Hobby World, basically.
Nice. It's nice to see a
so
dream like that.
Yeah. It was still, it was in Russia. It was crazy times, 2002, and oh man, there's a lot of stories.
Can you give us a quick little rundown of how you could play that game?
Well, honestly, it's by today's standards, it's not a very good game because today, you have to, uh, you have to follow, where the industry is developing and so on. But for Russia in 2002, there were no collectible card games at all in Russia at that time in the Russian language. So we actually captured that market at that time. And basically, if you when you're asking how you can play it, basically if you think of a miniatures game like minis, but you substitute cards for minis. So you have a bunch of cards. Every card is a creature. Creature has some health points, some strength, and they move around like an imaginary grid and attack each other, basically. And the goal is to destroy the creatures, the army of your opponent. So that's basically it.
Nice. They got any English version so I can get a copy of it?
Well, I don't know. In English, it's been published by Asmodee, actually. And it was published under the name Berserk War of the Realms. And I believe it's still available on Amazon. If it's not, I can get you a copy. I still have a couple boxes.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna have to check that out. I'd love to give it a shot. See where this dream came to fruition.
Well, I mean, as I said, for 2002 for Russia, it was a pretty cool project. But for modern, time gamers, it's not something that people would say it's a great product because the entry barrier is very difficult. Every card in the box has a lot of text on it, and you have to really learn what each card does before you can play. And you have about like 9 cards in your army and 9 cards in the opponent's army. So basically, you have to learn like 18 cards, what they do, how they play, and so on. So it's a very high, very difficult to enter this game.
Okay, well, hopefully I'll be able to take a crack at it. Heavy investment necessary for anyone interested in playing Berserk. War of the Realms, right?
Yeah, it's War of the Realms. Yeah.
Nice,
Yeah.
nice. So, we connected on LinkedIn, and I saw a couple of the other games that you worked on. Do you mind sharing some of those games that you've worked with?
Well, actually, right now, basically, I am not a very good game designer. I can say that, so games that I've designed were not, very good or very successful. But I can say that I'm a pretty good publisher. So I work with game designers and work with artists to bring it all together and make a good product. And so one of the games that I produced was called Space Explorers. You probably know about it.
I've been playing it nonstop.
Yeah. Well, this game was published by 25th Century Games. This is an American company from Atlanta. Its founder, Chad Elkins, has done a very good job with it, and he introduced it at Origins this year, and I think retail release was at the end of June. So this game is pretty new, but if you are interested, you can look up. You can see there is a video with Z Garcia from Dice Tower, and he goes through and tells you what it is, and also there are a few more videos there. Rattle, for example, has been pretty impressed with this game. So, I think this product really worked out well.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I think the game's fantastic. I've been able to play it ever since I met you at InfinityCon here in Tallahassee. That same day, I think we played it like 3 times. Just because the game is so easy to pick up and play and then replay. And so I know what the game is and you know what the game is, but I was wondering if you could kind of explain it for the listeners what Space Explorers is.
Yes, Space Explorers basically is an engine building game, which is sort of easy to learn, hard to master. You only have a very few actions. You either pick up a card or you buy a card, from the tableau in front of you, and put it into your like research center, and you're trying to launch as many space projects as you can. This game is similar, well, with the influence, let's say, of Splendor, but because it has all these card abilities that Splendor doesn't have, I think it's really a more, gives you some more variations that that you're able to, do during this game. Yeah, and it has some interesting ideas, interesting mechanics in it. The first one is you start by passing these tokens, which are kind of your game currency. You start with passing these tokens to the player clockwise, and then he can use it. So if you used it, then the next player can use them. So this is an interesting concept, and basically, in the beginning, you need to do that. You need to pass these tokens in order to buy the cards that you want. But as the game progresses, you use tokens less and less, and because you get discounts for cards that you've already played, and so this way, by the middle or end of the game, you almost don't use tokens at all. You just get cards for free or use them at discounts and so on.
Yeah. It makes it a whole lot easier later on in the game. And it's a testament to the game of how simple it is. It's like you said, it's simple to play, hard to master because I even played it with my family. We're talking like 40-year-old parents who mostly
Oh,
speak
cool.
Spanish. Yeah.
Oh,
And they picked it up
okay.
easily. I had to translate the whole game for them in Spanish so they could get, around it. But they understood the concepts and were able to do the turns effectively. It was pretty impressive.
Well, it's kind of interesting. I've had some interest from Spanish companies to publish it in Spanish, but unfortunately, that didn't materialize yet. But maybe it will. So if anyone is listening out there, we're looking for Spanish publishers.
That's awesome. That's awesome. I would love to see that. One quick question. Have you been able to play the game? I'm assuming you have.
Of course, of course. Well, I mean, I produced it, so I played it quite a bit.
So then I gotta ask, what's your favorite strategy, and do you have any tips for future space explorers?
Well, I think it's really a situational game. So basically, you have to switch between different strategies depending on what you see in front of you. So depending on what kind of ships you have in front of you, you look what their costs are, and basically you're trying to go just for those that the specialist cards that you need to launch as many ships as you can. And because there's an overlap, so for example, one ship needs three colors, another one needs the same three colors, and so if you're targeting these two ships, you have a good chance of winning, basically.
Yeah. I noticed myself actually ending a lot of games with the 12 card rule, the 12 specialist rule.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
because the getting those recipes for these projects is actually kind of difficult.
Sometimes yes, sometimes it is, but in my experience, mainly, basically, if you use the cards right and if you get the combinations of abilities right that you have open, because the way it works is that the card that is on top of other cards, you can use its ability, and once you cover it up with another card, then that ability is no longer available. So you have to really watch out for a lot of things, the abilities, the tokens, and all those things, and the ships, and that way you can basically win.
Awesome. Awesome. Do you have any idea where the art came from? Because I think that's the most striking part about Space Explorers. It's really nice, the art that's on these cards.
Yes, the artwork is been produced by an artist from Belarus. Belarus is an independent country, part of the Soviet Union formerly, but obviously this guy is from a relatively small town in Belarus, but he's a genius, I think, in my opinion. He's a genius because he's only 21 years old.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah, he's 21 years old, I think, well, maybe 22 now. But right now, he drew a couple of posters in this retro vintage style for Rogue One, the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And he got noticed by the producers of Rogue One.
Wow.
And they bought his poster, the source file. And ever since then, I think he is drawing posters for Hollywood now.
Wow, that's fantastic.
So,
what was this guy's name again?
His name is Alexei Kot.
Okay, awesome. Got to look out for that. Alexei Kot?
Kot, yes. He's, I don't think he'll be doing any more board games in the near future.
Hey, you snagged him when you had the chance then. So you have a top quality artist behind Space Explorers then.
Yeah. He's done several, he's helped me with several projects. Space Explorers was one of them. And actually, in the original cover art was Yuri Gagarin from Russia, the first astronaut who was launched into space. But then we got in contact with his daughters in Russia, and they're still alive. And it was a very difficult negotiation, and the lawyers got involved. So we had to redraw the cover for some generic art, which is, not his image. But I still have the original artwork with his face on the box.
Oh man, that's epic. That's really epic to see that drama unfold.
Yep.
Wow.
So even in board games, you can participate in history, basically.
Yeah, and the board game does have a lot of historical context. I mean, it's about the space race. Am I right?
Yes, it is. And basically, it has 10 U.S. spacecraft and 10 Soviet spacecraft, which is all based on original actual spacecraft that was launched in the 60s and 70s and so on.
Okay, awesome. That's pretty awesome too. One thing I wanted to bring up, and actually a close friend of mine brought it up when I introduced him to the game, is that he really enjoyed the game, but he wished there was more player-to-player interaction, with abilities of the cards. And so that made me think, have the team behind Space Explorers thought about expanding the game? I know it's just recently come out, but have there been any thoughts out there?
Yes, actually, the author, Yuri Zhuravov, he is working on the expansion, but I'm not sure if it will be happening anytime soon, because first of all, we no longer have Alexei Kot and his artwork, and I can tell it's pretty hard to match that level of quality of art generally. So since we no longer have Alexei, and any type of expansion could be developed, and the author is thinking about it, but I'm not sure. Maybe if the game becomes much more popular than it is right now, then we'll get to it.
Nice. Now, I may be asking for too much, but you got any details you'd like to share with us, or is that held under closed doors?
No. I mean, it's. I'll tell you that we have a draft prototype, but um, there is. I mean, it's still a very raw product that we cannot basically cannot show even to anybody because it's too young to be
Mm-hmm.
able to show it. So
Yeah, too early in development.
yeah, too early. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna throw out my idea there. I know it's still early, but maybe it can grow into something like this. And I was talking to my friend. I was like, maybe that player interaction that he wanted so badly could be accomplished with some sort of like spy mechanic. It still falls in that whole U.S. Russia relationship, and kind of adds this element of sabotage that could potentially spice up the game. But
Well, actually, it's funny that you bring this up because that's exactly what the way we went with developing the expansion. Because the expansion the idea was that it would be a much larger game, so it would have a map of the world, and it would have spies, sabotage, and generals, well, military, trying to establish influence in different parts of the world. But the core mechanic would be the same. You're trying to launch spaceships, but in addition, you're trying to gain influence around the world. Basically, competition between the Soviet bloc and the NATO countries.
awesome, awesome. Well, if there's ever a Kickstarter, you got my money.
Okay. Okay. Well, in fact, we're planning to do a Kickstarter or on another project of ours, which is called Deep State. And this game, I'm hoping to be able to release it in the fall. And whereas Space Explorers was published with a partner, 25th Century Games, this one we'll do ourselves. It will be a crowd games project.
Nice, nice. Now, Maxim, is that the game that I was able to get a glimpse of when you were at Infinity Con in Tallahassee?
Yes, that's
Oh,
that's the one. Yeah,
awesome. I
we
wasn't able to
we have
talk to you much about that. Do you mind explaining a little bit?
we have a really awesome video, and we will actually run. Well, let me back up a little bit. Right now, I have a company, Crowd Games. So my company is called Crowd Games, which is part of it becomes part of it is from crowdfunding. So crowd, you know, and this company is basically an international company. So it's me in Tallahassee, in Florida, and I have a pretty large team over in Moscow and all over Russia, basically. And we are going to be developing a lot of games and releasing them both in Russia and in America. And so we part of our operation is localizing U.S. games into Russian language and publishing them in Russia. So we've done a lot of games. I think about 80 or so games in the last 3 years, including very popular ones like Root, Psy. We work with the Jamie Stegmaier, Asmodee. We work with a lot of people. And we'll be launching our U.S. website, crowdgames.us, sometime very, very soon. Hopefully before we run the Kickstarter, so you will see all the information about us over there.
Nice.
And basically, Deep State is a game of like a New World Order type game. So you have a secret society that is trying to take over the world by overtaking some and infiltrating, the banks, the media, and so on. And whoever does the best job of it, he wins the game.
Fantastic.
Yep. We have a really cool video. Unfortunately, right now it's still in Russian. We're going to make it in English, and that will be our Kickstarter video.
Wow, that's really impressive. So for the listeners who may not know a lot about the board game space or the board game space in Russia, what are some of the differences that you've seen between both countries here in the U.S. and Russia?
Oh, well, the main difference is that U.S. market is 1,000 times bigger than the Russian market. And U.S. market has a lot more competition, obviously. Russian market is relatively small, and the company that I co-founded, Hobby World, has probably more than 50% of that market. So
Wow.
it's a very big company, big monopoly. As I said, it's probably in the top 5 largest board game publishers in the world right now. I think they publish more than 100 games every year.
Then I am honored to be your first interview. I'll tell you that much, Maxim.
Well, I appreciate you doing this because, this is my first interview ever.
Well, I think more people need to hear your experiences and just your talent, because to be able to work on so many games is really impressive.
Well, I can tell you that I'm really looking forward to releasing some of the games here in the U.S. I still, I think I know what would be interesting, but I'm not sure. So it's a learning process. It's a learning curve, as always. But, I have almost 20 years on the belt in doing this, so I kind of know how they sell, how you print them, how you work with artists, how you work with authors, the designers of the game. So, I think I can basically do it fairly easily, but, only the players can ultimately decide if it's a good game or not. So, I'm just a guy who's trying to, do his best under the circumstances.
Awesome. Well, one thing I noticed when we had that conversation at the convention is you had a sign-up sheet for testing the games. Is there any way that some of our listeners might be able to reach out to Crowd Games and pique their interest in the board games that you guys publish?
Okay. The easiest way to do it would be right now through Facebook. So our Facebook page is called Crowd Games International. Crowd, CROWD, Games International. And if you just like this page or shoot a message to this page, I am the one on the other end, and I will respond, and I will get your contact information. But pretty soon we're going to have a website, and we will, establish a sign-up form so that, anybody who is interested in, playtesting our games, we're definitely looking for these people because, it's one thing to do the games in Russia, but English is not our native language. So we need people who can, proofread, who can basically tell us what mistakes we're making, and so on and so forth.
Oh, luckily, there's a great community of board game players here in Tallahassee, so I'm sure they'll be happy to give you a hand.
Yeah, wonderful. Yes, I was hoping that I will encounter this community.
Yeah, I'll make sure to. I'm originally from South Florida, so I have some folks down there who play board games, but I migrated up to Tallahassee for school, and that's where I got to meet that community at FSU that plays board games. So I'll make sure that once we're done with this episode, we get the word out and have some people try out Space Explorer so they can really see how good it is.
Well, I right now I have about 7 games in development.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of games that I'm planning to publish in the near future, and I sure do need a lot of help.
Well, I'll make sure to be at least one helping hand.
Thank you, Matt.
Awesome. So right now you're going to be going to Russia, am I right?
Yes, I'll be there for the next month. I'm coming back in the middle of August.
All right. Is this for business? Is this just family or?
Oh, mainly family, but of course some business too. I'll meet with the designers. I'll meet with with my team, and so on and so forth. So it will be both.
Nice. Excellent. Excellent. Um, wow, I'm kind of in shock to hear the whole history of the game that I just happened to pick up for $30 at the convention a couple weeks ago, and then excited to hear about the future of the games that Crowd Games is working on. I did have one question for you. So you've been working in the board game market for so long. Have you ever been interested in the digital game market, like video games or computer games or anything like that?
Well, I can tell you that I have not actually, and it's been a conscious decision. I think that there is definitely an overlap, but this overlap is, first of all, it's kind of very recent. So games like Chronicles of Crime or Mansion of Madness, use apps, for sometimes maybe for like a co-op game to guide the players and so on. So they, instead of a game master, you have the app that guides you. So there's an overlap there. And the second overlap is the licenses. For example, Asmodee has published games like Fallout or Star Wars, and basically, I think that it's really a different type of person who is interested in the digital games because, a lot of, what board games are about is interaction. It's actually seeing people's faces, and a lot of digital games is just sitting in front of a screen and you don't know who's on the other end, basically.
Hmm.
So I'm core board game board game fan and geek.
Yeah, I'm a huge video gamer myself, but was always interested in board games because of that community building that happens when you're at the table with 3 to 4 to 5 players, however many, and that connection that you make. I feel like even nowadays, even though digital games are becoming bigger and brighter and more exciting, it's still a bit hard to get that cooperative feeling like it used to have back in the retro days.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, like as with books, people were, venturing their opinion. Then books would be spared because you have, all these electronic readers where you upload a book and you read it. So there will be no books in 10 years, some people said. But look, there's still books and people still read them and enjoy them actually because not everybody likes to look at the screen all day.
Hmm.
Yep.
So, Maxim, for any of our listeners who might be interested in working on board games or learning more about the creation of board games, do you have any tips for them, places where they might be able to start or get some experience?
Well, the main the main learning venue is just playing a lot of games because don't be afraid to build up on what other people have made. So basically somebody will say, well, you're advising people to plagiarize, but that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that after you've played enough games and enough good games, you will know some of the mistakes that designers make, and you will see how you can take an idea and then improve upon it. Because there's right now, there's not that many different types of games. There are meeple placement games, there are engine building games, the Euro games, their Ameritrash games, and each one of these categories is, deck building, for example. Let's say, Dominion was probably one of the first games that came out with this mechanic, and then now you have hundreds and hundreds of deck building games. So can you say they were plagiarized? No, they just took the idea of this mechanic, and every game brings something different to the table. So play a lot of games. That's the way you learn.
Nice. That's great to hear. Good thing I'm I'm learning right now. I don't think I have as many games under my belt as you, but I got a few.
Okay.
And so that leads me to my next question. So you've had this long history of working on board games and playing them. What's your favorite board game?
I cannot say. I don't know really right now. That's an honest answer because every game is different and every game gives you a different playing experience. And depending on the experience that you like, and that you anticipate, there's a favorite game which gives you a completely different experience and feeling.
Okay. Then let's just say, what's been the most recent game that has made you have fun or piqued your interest?
Well, I actually, Matthew, a lot of people in Tallahassee who like board games. I don't. I don't know almost anybody. So I have just my family and some of our close friends, and they're not, huge geeks. So we played Azul. We played abstract games like Patchwork. I play Patchwork with my wife every once in a while.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yep. How do you spell that?
So, Patchwork, Path, Patch, CH, Patch, no, TCH, Patch, WORK, Patchwork,
Gotcha.
Patchwork, Azul. But yeah. I've published Patchwork in Russia, and many other games.
Awesome.
If you want, you can go to the website called crowdgames.ru, which is Russia, and there you can see all the games that I've published.
Awesome. Well, thanks, Maxim. We appreciate your time today. You gave us some excellent information on the board games industry and how you translated from Russia to the States, and hopefully your future seems very bright here in the United States.
Well, you never know. Maybe people like to play different games than the ones that I make. Anyway, but we'll see.
Hey, but Florida is a great place to start. Plenty of people, a diverse mix.
I agree.
Yeah. All right, Maxim.
Well, thank you, Matt.
Well, I appreciate it so much. Thanks for coming on to the Expansion Pack, and you'll hear from me soon.
All right. Thank you.
We hope you liked today's episode of the Expansion Pack. Maxim introduced me to Space Explorers, and I hope this episode piqued your interest and persuaded you to check it out for yourself. If so, just search up Space Explorers on Amazon, and if you want to know more about other board games that Maxim has helped publish, just visit crowdgames.ru. The website's in Russian, so make sure to hit that translate option on your browser. And if you liked what you listened to on the episode today, please feel free to check us out on our website at xpansionpack.com. That's expansion without the E. And follow us on Twitter. We're continuing to grow the podcast with every episode, and we'd love to hear feedback on the show. That's all for today's episode, and we'll catch you next week on the Expansion Pack.